We learn from elders. We learn from survival. We learned from each other. For trans guys. Wisdom you can feel. Real talk, collective care. Hello and welcome to another episode of For Trans Guys. You've done it. You've made it. You're listening. We're so excited. My name is Megan.
I'm Zander.
And I'm JJ.
And today we've got some exciting and interesting and engaging conversation, and we're going to find out what it is once Zander tells us.
That's right. So today we're going to be talking about aging, right? So the question is, what does aging as trans men teach us, and what conversations do we wish more people were having about it, right? So again, aging as trans men, and what do we wish people were actually talking about when it comes to this topic? And I'm going to hand it back over to Megan to start us off.
Sounds good. Well, I think I'll say this in a sort of joking tone of voice, but I actually mean it. And that's that because I am a trans man, people think I'm younger than I actually am. And so I am looking forward to aging. I am excited that I have my widow's peak growing. I am hoping I will get more gray, not the kind of gray that comes from being so overly stressed that your stress is manifest on your body, but the kind of gray that comes from earned wisdom. And I'm hoping that having more of that will help people trust that I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking. I would say 50% of people have a very large dose of transmisia. And transmisia, just to shorten it out, is the idea that people believe trans people are just always wrong, that everything they say is a lie. Like, for example, if someone's like, why are you going to the bathroom? And the obvious answer is to go to the bathroom, to like use the facilities. But they imagine everything other than that as a possibility about why a trans person might be going to the bathroom. That's transmisia. I like to say it's trans missing out because they have excluded trans people from their lives. So 50% of people that I engage with, I would say, have a very large dose of transmisia. When I'm speaking, they assume I'm like 16 to 20, and they assume I'm not a human being who has 2 doctorates, which I only have to have because people assume I don't know what I'm talking about 50% of the time. And so I sort of have a side of myself that has chosen to be overly educated to compensate from the fact that people believe that I am not old enough to be wise. And I'm really looking forward to having some of the external signs that communicate to the world wisdom. Now, do I love the like spontaneous way I have to be like, ugh, when I stand up because my knees hurt sometimes or my back hurts? No, I do not. But I really would like some of that credibility that other people seem to have just by being out in the world. A lot of people have spoken about how trans men sort of like instantly gain male privilege. That has not been my personal experience because of the way people assume that I'm either younger or not wise or not smart enough, or how did I get this job, or why is my son hanging out around, right? And so what I have found is that I overcompensate for that. It's only 50% of the people who engage with me in that way, but it's so aggressive and all the time that almost 100% of the time I've noticed when I speak out loud, like at work, I will lead with my resume. And so instead of saying, here's what I think, when someone asks, I will say, well, based on the fact that I worked as a first responder during COVID, here's what I think. Or based on what I learned in my first doctorate, here's what I think. Or based on, and I will like fill in different jobs that I've had throughout my life rather than just being like everyone else in the room and saying what I think. And for the other 50% of people who don't have transmisia, they will often respond with something like, yeah, we already think you belong here, right? Or you're like, yeah, we know. Or it comes off as kind of like strange, or people read it as like being narcissistic or only about myself, because they're like, well, why do you have to tell me how many accolades you have, right? And so it comes off strangely because I'm sort of overcompensating for how often people aggressively act like I don't know what I'm talking about. And so I don't know that that's fully answering your question about aging and what I'm looking forward to it, but that's a really huge aspect of it for myself. I like the idea of retiring doesn't sound fun to me because I'm someone who really loves to do a project. A lot of people, I think, make fun of me because even on my vacations, I'm like writing a book or doing some sort of activity. I think, again, that relates to how often people assume I don't know what I'm doing and having to kind of overperform or overbe in the world. But there is something I've noticed in some of the like trans men that I have hung out with, or like I got to spend a bunch of time with Kate Bornstein at an event in Washington, D.C., like more than a decade ago. And I think there is this like way that as people age and as trans people, they kind of like give fewer fucks, right? They care less about how many people are like staring at them, and they just start like doing the things that make them happy. And so like I want to grow into that part of it. Like I will trade achy knees and noises when I stand up for trying less hard, or like if there was a way to dissolve the feeling that people give me, that is why I'm like over functioning in the world, like I would super love that. And I feel like I'm starting to practice it now, in part because the age of people I supervise at work gets younger and younger as the years go on. And so as I am more than 20 years past graduating from college, I start to believe it a little more in my own body that I'm a person who has aged. And I hope that I will like continue living into that, because man, the ability to kind of let go of caring so much if people think that I ought to be in the room really would be an amazing gift if that's a thing that comes with age. I don't know. Is that what you meant by the question, Zander?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can go because we're individuals and we've lived our lives in very different ways. So there's no one way to answer this question, just like there's no one way to be a trans man, right? There's no one way to transition. So I love that answer. How about you, JJ?
Yeah, so many stories as you were talking, Megan. Do you remember, Megan, we were doing a release, I think it was of the book. Was it Myrtle Alley that we were at? Where with Myrtle Alley? Okay, so this trans man walks up to me, and I don't, you'll see in pictures, I've got a belly, right? And he comes up to me and he like gives me this big hug, and we take a selfie, and he's little like, trans belly. And I was like, wow, it is a thing. And it's okay. I grew my belly because, as things start to get removed, like a belly starts to show up. And I've been a heavier person most of my adult life. And I think normalizing bodies of all shapes and types is number one, permission giving. But even for trans men, like you described, Megan, in a I think previous episode, you were talking about just like ripped bodies, right, as a version of a trans man. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be all kinds, as you were talking about, Zander. Like it can be however the uniqueness of ourselves can be. So it was such a gift to be embraced by another trans person who recognized and celebrated bodies as they are, and that it is important to talk about. Like sometimes as we take medications of different types, like bodies change and shapes will change as well. And that comes with its own kind of factors. And so my whole thing, as a peer person and as a massage therapist, is I really look at letting my body lead the story and the direction that I'm taking with my wellness as I age. I often have told my therapist over the years, like, I did not, as a queer person, think I was going to live past 30. I'm mesmerized that I'm well past 45, right? Like, that's incredible. And so as doctors, tend to arm wrestle me with like old age diseases. I'm like, that's really special and interesting. And thank you very much. I'll take that under advisement. But I've had doctors literally, whether it be transmasculine or not, say, like, if I'm not taking whatever pill they're prescribing with me without asking questions or challenging the logic for my body and lived experience, that I'm just going to die. And I was like, that's good to know. Thank you. I think we all will die. I don't think any of us are going to get out of here alive. And I'm surprised that I've lived this long. So I want to then embrace whatever years I have. And what gives me a little bit of hope in that, this is going to sound really ironic, is my mom at the age of 70 decided to become a bodybuilder. And she is now 81 and she's won her pro card. And she has used some things to enhance her body, let's say. We've on similar journeys with that aspect. And, it's possible. It's possible that my genetics have that kind of longevity. Both my parents are in their 80s, right? So now I'm curious about aging. Now I'm wondering, well, cool. Okay, if I have another 30, 40 years, okay, what does that mean? And what do I want out of this body? And things that I'm learning are, this body needs breaks, right? It can't do the overfunctioning in my 20s and 30s where, Megan, as you described, like if I can just work a little harder or have more fun or do all kind of the diverse things that I'm really cool at, if I can do them all at the same time, people will believe me more or will buy into whatever it is that I'm doing more, or I'll have more street cred. And I'm realizing this body just doesn't have that kind of tolerance. And it has evolved me into a very different conversation with my body, going back to embodiment. And that gets into this idea around transitional wisdom and wellness. There's wisdom in our bodies. That wisdom is telling us what we can and cannot do. And in there, we can learn how to be well. And I think being trans and going through a transition process, having multiple surgeries, has made me so much more aware of not only who I am as an identity, but also what my body is willing to carry me through. And that, I think, has just been such a gift. I don't know if those are some thoughts that you've got, Zander, there, but let me know what resonated with you.
Absolutely. I mean, so much came up for me that I do. Both of your stories resonate with me in different ways. So I also didn't think that I would live past the age of 30. My earlier years were pretty rough, and I figured if I did live past 30, I'd probably be in prison because of my gang affiliation as a young first generation Mexican American in Los Angeles, being involved in gangs and some of the crimes that I was involved in. Luckily, I never got caught, right? So I also considered taking my own life at a point in my adolescence. So, I thought maybe I'd overdose. Like, I really didn't think that I would live past 30 either. And because of that, I didn't plan for a future. I didn't plan for what I would do. Would I go to school? What my career would be? I did not plan. So I had a bit of a failure to launch in that way. I was a high school dropout and was in special education as a young person, mostly because of I suffered encephalitis post MMR vaccination. I had an adverse reaction to that vaccination when I was 6 years old, getting ready to go into first grade. So it's just actually a medical miracle that I'm here. And I think that because of that, it helped me get through the rougher periods. But it also influenced some of my transition. And maybe we'll talk about that on another episode, especially about the embodiment stuff. But I'm going to be 60 on the 7th of July. So it is now the 17th of May that we're recording this. So it's just around the corner for me. And when I look back now, it's remarkable that I am where I am. Like Megan, I have a lot of degrees. So I went from being a high school dropout to serving in the military to kind of putzing around for a while, doing a lot of odd jobs. I was a massage therapist. I worked in natural foods. But I didn't have a savings account. I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have a pension that I was putting money into. Like, I didn't have anything like that. But I kept collecting degrees, mostly because it was hard to work in a professional setting as a masculine woman. And I wanted to avoid that. So I went to college and then graduate school and then seminary and then graduate school again. And lo and behold, one of the things that I discovered was that people started to take me seriously. Right. And so, Megan, you were talking about that. People started to take me seriously. I actually remember when I was thinking about what kind of degree I was going to get next when I finished seminary. And I landed on, well, I initially went to law school for a little while and decided, no, this is not the right place for me. And then I went into the Master of Social Work program because I thought I want to be able to be credible, right? You talked about that, Megan. I wanted people to look at me and say, yeah, I respect you. I trust you. You have something to say, and I'm going to listen because of that credibility. And so the social work degree actually gave me that. It did. And then it gave me a really good job working for the federal government where I had something called a 401k that I could start putting money into. And once you hit 50, you can put a lot more money into it to catch up, they call it. So I was able to do some of that. And but when it comes to aging, there's other issues that factor in for me, which is long-term care, right? What are the long-term care options for those of us who are medically transitioned? Where are we going to be able to go and still get our hormones, right? Am I going to be able to go into an assisted living facility that's going to continue to give me my testosterone? How about nursing home care? Luckily, there are lots of advances in this area that have taken place over the last couple of years. The Human Rights Campaign, they have their corporate equality index and their healthcare equality index. Well, they now have a long-term care equality index. So they're building the capacity for places that we can go when we get to that age. That wasn't true for the people that came before us. There's also US PATH, which is the US chapter of WPATH. So that's World Professional Association for Transgender Health. So it's then the United States chapter of that. And they have a committee that's focused on aging and elder care that Jude Patton is one of the co-chairs of. Again, he's a trans man. We talked about him in our third episode, who's in his 80s. He's a psychiatric a psychiatric physician assistant and a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's still working, by the way. Remarkable man. He's involved in this, and there's a whole lot of research that's being done on this area with aging. I founded or co-founded the LGBTQ Caregiver Center in June of 2021 with another social worker. That was when I was taking care of my father who had dementia, because we wanted to be able to make a resource available for those of us who were caretaking in our community. And that then got me involved in 3 different national academic, what do you call it? Research, it's like research studies. That's what they were. And I was invited to be on the advisory boards for 3 of them. And they were looking specifically at LGBT and aging and Alzheimer's and dementia, right? So the caregiver is part of it, but also just those of us who are aging and what happens to us when we start having cognitive declines. Who's going to care for us? Where are the places we can go? And we shouldn't have to worry about that. We should be able to find these places. SAGE, which used to be called Seniors Active in a Gay Environment. It's called something else now, I'm sure, but that's what it started out as. They have a lot of resources available for LGBT people who are aging and who are caregivers. And they started doing a lot of, remember back in the day, I remember in my college, I was a safe zone trainer, right? And so this was in the mid 90s, into the late 90s. Well, SAGE started doing that in nursing homes and assisted living facilities and long-term care facilities and senior living centers. And so they continue to do that work. And now the HRC Long-Term Care Equality Index is just expanding on that. So you can go and look at all the places in your state and around the country that have already basically signed on to being places that are safe zones for us, places we can go and live. So that's more what I'm thinking about. And I don't think I would have been thinking about this idea of long-term care options until I was a caregiver for my father. And I needed to take charge of his medical decisions and his financial decisions. And that led me into this world where I could learn more about it. And it does put me a little at ease knowing that the capacity is being developed for places that we can go, and that I can go with my wife, Margaret, right? I don't have to go alone. We don't have to be roommates in the nursing home, right? That was a fairly common thing that people had to go through. So I'm happy that that's not the reality all the time. It still happens today, but there is a future where it's going to be less and less of an issue for us. And I'm just really appreciative for people like Jude Patton and other members of the committee. I'm not going to name them all, but they're doing really wonderful research. They're academics, they're presenting at conferences, they're writing books. More and more of this is coming out. So I'm just really thankful that people are doing this work. Yeah. So now you have heard from all three of us, aging as trans men. And we want to hear from you now. So you can respond in the comments section and wherever it is that you are watching or listening to this podcast. And we look forward to reading those comments and responding to you.
And I'm going to add how much, you know this, Zander, that I loved your dad. May his memory be a blessing. And that reminds me too of like how precious it is that we like hang out with, get wisdom from, share our stories now. And I don't know if it's fully public, but I really hope you will give a special sneak into a possible space of connection. We know that JJ is working on connections for online community at transwisdom.net. But Zander, are you willing to share a little bit about what's happening at the end of July in the Portland area?
Absolutely. So if you live, in the Portland area or you're here during that time, so July 31st, which I believe is a Friday. I don't know exactly what time yet because I haven't been told that, but I believe it's in the evening on that Friday. There is a bookstore in Portland called Bold Books and Coffee, or maybe it's Bold Coffee and Books. I apologize that I might not be saying it correctly. And there are going to be 4 trans men authors reading from their books. And so I will be one of the authors reading from my book, The Third Space, A Nonconformist Guide to the Universe. But I will also be bringing copies of the Manning Up book, the Letters from My Brother's book, and the Manifest book. Jameson Green will be bringing his Becoming a Visible Man, and also a book that he is co-author of, which is a history of trans medicine. And it's international. It's a big, thick textbook. Jude Patton, or excuse me, not Jude Patton. I apologize. I wish Jude was going to be able to be there. Reed Vanderberg is going to be there. Reed is a local Portland trans man who is a retired therapist who wrote some really great books on working with trans people as a therapist. And then the fourth author is David Weekley. David Weekley is a minister in the United Methodist Church, has his doctorate from, I think it's Boston College, but is still an ordained minister and has written a handful of books as well, and will be reading maybe selections from a couple of them or all of them. So that'll be David Weekley, Reed Vanderberg, Jameson Green, and myself, Zander Keig, all reading at the Bold Books and Coffee, or Bold Coffee and Books in Portland on Friday, July 31st. Hope you can come.
And I'm going to come.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you're going to come.
You don't know yet.
That's the plan. That's the plan. That'll be so exciting.
Okay. So if you show up and you mention 4 trans guys to Zander, myself, or JJ, we're going to give you a special limited edition prize.
Yay.
And I'm not going to say what it is because I want it to be exciting and interesting. But if you're around in the Portland area, let us know. And until then, like, subscribe, do all those things that you do in all of those podcast response areas. Thank you for sharing everything. It's been so great to see how many people have been enjoying the podcast and sharing it with others. And we will talk to you next time.